What's up, Lantern fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast back with another Green Lantern collectible review. This time I'm looking at the McFarlane DC Multiverse action figure 2-pack of Green Lanterns, Kilowog, and Kyle Rayner. Let's have a look at the packaging. This is a gold label 2-pack, and the bottom front says Kilowog and Green Lantern, as it does on the side. On the opposite side, there's a partial window, and once again, it says Kilowog and Green Lantern. There's product information on the bottom. Once again, there's a partial window on the top. And on the back, we get the covers to Green Lantern Volume 3, number 34. This was the selfie variant cover, as well as Green Lantern Volume 3. This is issue number 51, and that is my all-time favorite DC Comics cover. I really appreciate this large front window and the fact that the accessories are positioned to the middle and to the sides of the figures, so it doesn't take the focus off of the figures themselves. And now let's bust open this package and see what's inside. The bases and cards are attached to this inner cardboard tray. These figures come with circular black peg bases. The DC logo is on the top and they are blank on the bottom. And here are the trading cards. And here's the trading card of Kilowog taking a selfie with John Stewart. The back contains a brief character description. I'll put a close-up of this at the end of the video if you'd like to read it. I'm putting these cards in penny sleeves and top loaders. And here is the Kyle Rayner trading card. That is so beautiful. Here is the character description on the back. I might get a graded version of this card at some point. As for this one, it's going into a penny sleeve and top loader for safekeeping. And here are the accessories that come with Kilowog. And I really appreciate the fact that his personal power battery scales well with the figure. McFarlane didn't just make a perfunctory effort and give him a regular sized power battery. This one fits the figure well. There's some great sculpting on this. And speaking of excellent sculpting, there's plenty of that here on this construct hammer. It features numerous textures, and my favorite aspect of this accessory is that it features the Green Lantern symbol in the middle of it. Here are the accessories that come with Kyle Rayner. We have seen these before, although the shading on these is better than the ones that have come before it. It's more accurate to what we see in the comics. Here is an alternate hand, and I'll have more to say about the rings later in this video. We get two construct swords. One is like a katana, and the other features a very wide blade. This is extremely well done. There's plenty of excellent sculpting on this. And of course, we get the stylized personal power battery. And McFarlane did an outstanding job on this. The handle does not move, but it is comic accurate. And here we see Kyle Rayner and Kilowog free of the box and ready to rumble. McFarlane has improved with each Kyle Rayner figure that they have released, so I only have minor criticisms of this figure. As for Kilowog, I am overjoyed to finally have him in my McFarlane DC Multiverse Green Lantern collection. However, I do have one major criticism of this figure, so let's have a closer look at the loose details now. Let's have a look at the Kyle Rayner figure, and for starters, I certainly prefer this shade of green over the one that was used for the Changing the Guard figure. As far as I can see, this is just a repaint of that figure, which doesn't upset me. I'm always happy to add new Kyle Rayner figures to my collection. I appreciate the texturing on the lower body. Once again, it has this pliable hip piece, so don't get overzealous there when posing the figure. You don't want to do damage to that area. There could be a little more definition in the hamstrings, but I really appreciate the sculpting work on the boots. Now let's have a look at the torso, and once again we get the original Daryl Banks symbol, and it's executed very well. My biggest problem with this figure is that once again there is no white section on the back. Given that this is a repaint, I feel like McFarlane could have done that this time to give us a more comic accurate costume. Here's a close-up of the arms, and I really appreciate the sculpting on the forearm gauntlets. And here's a close-up of the biceps. Perhaps we could have used a little more definition on the outside of the biceps, although we do get some pretty good definition here on the inside. So I'm thankful for that. I think the musculature is accurate. Kyle's an in-shape guy, but he's not overly buff. So the size choices that McFarlane made definitely work for this figure. Now let's have a look at the head sculpt. And the paint job on the mouth on this particular figure is a little thick, and it looks just a little odd, but that is not the way that it is on the figure that I left mint in box. I really appreciate these little strands of hair that hang over the mask. That is definitely accurate for Kyle's character. The mask has been executed very well here, and I appreciate the white eyes. So overall, I'm pleased with the look here. Now let's have a look at the articulation. There is pivoting and back and forth movement at the ankle joints. There are double jointed knees, and that will allow you to get the figure into a running pose. He can kick forward about that far, and the legs spread out from the sides this much, and the figure can step back. There's rotation of the waist and a swiveling of the upper torso. There's wrist rotation. There are double jointed elbows, so you can get the figure's arm into this kind of angle. Once again, there's bicep swiveling, and the figure has these butterfly joints in the shoulders that will allow you to do a 360. So this figure has many options for ring slinging poses. The head moves easily from side to side. The up and down movement is a little limited. However, there is a considerable amount of head tilting. Overall, I'm very happy with this figure's articulation. So I put the alternate hand on the figure, and I definitely think that the fist has the better ring of the two. The paint jobs still aren't perfect, but this is far more precise than we saw on some of the earlier efforts from McFarlane. The Green Lantern symbol is definitely visible on this ring, so I appreciate that, although I still feel that it's a little undersized. Now let's have a look at the big guy, and of course we'll start with the legs, and the sculpting on the boots is magnificent. There's texturing throughout this figure. The calf muscles are massive, as are the quadriceps, and you can see the various textures that run throughout the costume. I certainly appreciate those. And just like with the Kyle figure, this figure features the flexible hip piece. Here's a look at the torso, and the Green Lantern chest symbol has been executed very well. The edges are sculpted, and I really like the various textures around the pectorals. However, the piece that's been used for the abdominals is just too small. And I'll be comparing this figure to other Kilowog figures later in the video to show you exactly what I mean. Now let's have a look at the arms, and we get these massive forearm gauntlets, And these have not been popular with all Green Lantern fans because, of course, Kilowog wears white gloves in the comics. But I don't have an issue with McFarlane putting their own take on figures in certain areas. The arms are massive, just as they should be, and we get these butterfly joints in the shoulders, and I certainly appreciate those. And I definitely like the gripping hand for accessories. The ring on this figure is gorgeous. The size, the sculpt, and the paint applications are all perfect. This is the best Green Lantern ring from McFarlane so far. The head sculpt has been extremely well executed. We get these bulldog-like jowls, lots of lines sculpted in. I appreciate the skin tone as well as this expression. Despite Kilowog being a very different alien-looking character, McFarlane managed to make this head sculpt look realistic, and I certainly appreciate that. Now let's have a look at the articulation. The feet move backward and forward at the ankle joint. There's a mid-foot hinge. There's also ankle pivoting. There are double jointed knees, and this will allow you to get the figure into a running pose, as you see demonstrated here. The legs are quite sturdy. This figure is very well balanced. Unfortunately, the figure only kicks forward this far, and I feel like if you press this, you run the risk of damaging the hip piece. The legs move out from the sides this much, so that is not as limited as the forward kicking motion. You can get the figure to step back, and that's always a plus. There's rotation at the waist. There's upper torso swiveling. However, I will say that there's quite a gap between the abdominals and the upper torso. In terms of the arms, there's rotation at the wrists. The elbows articulate to this degree. Obviously, with the musculature being so massive, it is somewhat limited. However, we do have the bicep swiveling. And with these butterfly joints, there's still many posing options when it comes to ring slinging. And the arms do a 360, and you can get the figure into the big wingspan pose, and I certainly appreciate that. The articulation of the head sculpt is a little unusual due to the design of the head, but as you can see here, you still have plenty of options, including head tilting. So in no way am I saying that McFarlane did a poor job here. It's just a little unusual because Kilowog's head is so unusual. Here is the figure next to the DC Direct Kilowog, as well as the DC Universe Classics Collect and Connect Kilowog. And this illustrates my issue with the abdomen on the McFarlane figure. It's not that it's poorly sculpted, but it looks out of place with the rest of the figure. You can see with the other two figures, the abdominal area is very thick, and that meshes well with the rest of the figure. This is the difference between a bodybuilder's build and a powerlifter's build, and Kilowog definitely falls more into that second category. So a slightly larger abdominal piece would have been a huge improvement. Last but not least, here is the figure holding the personal power battery. One of my pet peeves as a Green Lantern collector is to get a figure with a power battery accessory that the figure cannot hold. That is certainly not the case here. The accessory fits securely into the figure's hand, and it gives us the type of look that we see in the comics. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this review, and remember to tell all of your friends about this channel. I would certainly appreciate it. And I'll be back with more Green Lantern content soon. But until we meet again, this has been the Emerald Enthusiast, and thanks for watching.